Ever wonder what happened to those brave men and women after the skies went quiet and the seas calmed? The post-war years brought stories not of victory parades, but of rebuilding, reflection, and resilience. These dramas, often overlooked, show what courage looks like when the fighting ends and the silence begins. Some take you inside cockpits, others aboard ships that carried ghosts of the past. And yes, all of them can be streamed legally and freely if you know where to look. Let's take off. The Way to the Stars, 1945. Before post-war cinema grew dark and cynical, The Way to the Stars gave Britain a rare kind of beauty, a film that honored loss without drowning in despair. Set on an RAF bomber base, it traces the intertwined lives of pilots and ground crew as the war changes them piece by piece. The dialogue feels like poetry dressed in khaki, while the quiet moments' letters, tea breaks, shared glances speak louder than any dogfight. Directed by Anthony Asquith and released right at the end of the Second World War, it stars John Mills and Michael Redgrave, both carrying the haunted calm of men who've seen too much. Unlike the American air epics of the era, this film avoids glamour. Instead, it studies how endurance replaces heroism, how small acts repairing an engine, waiting for a friend who won't return, become sacred. When you stream it today, you'll notice its timeless rhythm. The film isn't about flying, it's about falling back to earth, back into emotion, back into what it means to feel human again. In a world recovering from chaos, The Way to the Stars reminds you that courage isn't only found in battle. Sometimes it's found in carrying on. 633 Squadron, 1964. The roar of engines, the metallic echo of courage, and the unmistakable pulse of Elmer Bernstein's score. 633 Squadron isn't subtle, but it doesn't need to be. This is pure RAF action, centered around a daring mission to destroy a Nazi stronghold nestled deep in Norway's fjords. Based loosely on real events, it combines adventure with a crisp sense of duty that defined post-war British filmmaking. Cliff Robertson leads the charge as Wing Commander Grant, balancing American cool with British grit. The model work and aerial photography shot using real de Havilland Mosquito aircraft still hold up astonishingly well, reminding us of a time when special effects meant actually flying. Every frame screams authenticity because it practically is. What makes it fascinating is what lies beneath the heroics, the quiet melancholy of men who know their mission might be their last. It's a film that celebrates skill but acknowledges sacrifice, mixing excitement with the ache of inevitability. For many viewers, this was the first movie that made the RAF feel both cinematic and human. If you find it streaming freely on platforms like YouTube's Classic Film Archives, give it a go. It's not just a war story, it's a skyborne elegy, one that defined how Britain remembered its flyers long after the guns went silent. Sink the Bismarck, 1960. Sometimes history feels more thrilling than fiction. Sink the Bismarck proves that. Released in 1960, this gripping naval drama dramatizes the Royal Navy's pursuit of the German battleship that once dominated the Atlantic. But what makes it shine is its precision, its tight pacing, cold efficiency, and unglamorous sense of realism. Kenneth More delivers a standout performance as Captain Jonathan Shepard, a man fighting two battles, one against the enemy and one against his own doubts. The film unfolds like a chess match at sea, each move strategic, each decision costly. There's no shouting or swashbuckling, only the steady hum of calculation and resolve. Director Lewis Gilbert, who later helmed several Bond adventures, crafts tension from silence and radar screens, proving that suspense doesn't need explosions to work. The dialogue crackles with understated intensity, officers weighing lives against duty, ships advancing toward near-certain destruction. Streaming this today, you'll realize how restrained and intelligent it feels compared to modern action fare. No CGI waves, no noisy bravado, just human will measured against the immensity of the ocean. And when that final command comes, it's less about victory than closure. Few films capture the dignity of naval warfare with such clear-eyed respect. The Cruel Sea, 1953. It's not just one of the greatest Royal Navy films ever made, it's one of Britain's defining post-war stories. The Cruel Sea, adapted from Nicholas Montserrat's novel, isn't about glory. It's about endurance. The sea itself becomes the villain cold, unforgiving, and indifferent to medals or courage. Jack Hawkins stars as Commander Erickson, captain of the corvette HMS Compass Rose. His performance is mesmerizing, restrained, weary, utterly believable. Unlike the confident heroes of wartime propaganda, Erickson is haunted. Every lost sailor leaves a mark. Every decision weighs heavier than the last. The film's most powerful moments are quiet ones, men sharing cigarettes in silence, the creak of steel under pressure, a captain staring into endless gray. Director Charles Friend used real naval vessels and shot much of it in harsh conditions, giving the film a documentary texture that still stings with authenticity. There's no glamour here, only cold realism and moral fatigue. The script even acknowledges what few dared to show, then the emotional toll of command, the numbness that follows repeated loss. Watch it today, and you'll see why it remains essential. The Cruel Sea doesn't just depict war, it dissects it. It reminds us that sometimes survival itself is the story. Battle of Britain, 1969. Before digital skies and computer dogfights, Battle of Britain recreated aerial combat with the real thing, dozens of restored aircraft soaring over England's skies. Directed by Guy Hamilton, the same man who gave us Goldfinger, this film aimed for nothing less than total authenticity. And somehow it pulled it off. The cast reads like a British acting hall of fame. Michael Caine, Laurence Olivier, Trevor Howard, and Susanna York. Each brings their gravitas to a story that's more documentary than drama. There's no single hero here. The film honors the collective, the squadrons, the controllers, the mechanics, all part of a fragile line between invasion and survival. Behind the spectacle lies the emotional thread of loss and endurance. We see the young pilot's bravado fade into quiet fear, the weight of responsibility crushing even the most stoic. The film's sound design, featuring the authentic growl of Spitfires and Messerschmitts, pulls you straight into the cockpit. Streaming it now, you'll be surprised how fresh it feels. It's not about nostalgia, it's about memory, about a generation that learned bravery doesn't end when the shooting stops. Battle of Britain captures the essence of that moment when history balanced on a wingtip and somehow stayed aloft. Warship, 1973 to 1977. When television met the Royal Navy, it looked like this Warship, a series that ran through the 70s, chronicling life aboard HMS Hero, a fictional frigate that felt so real it could have been docked outside your window. This wasn't a glamorous portrait of naval life. It was gritty, procedural, and deeply human, mixing military precision with kitchen-sink realism. The BBC went all in. They filmed on-board real Royal Navy ships, consulted actual officers, and used real naval terminology minus the heavy-handed heroics. What made Warship special was its refusal to turn sailors into stereotypes. They had tempers, regrets, and moral lines blurred by orders they didn't always agree with. The camera lingered on their silences, their laughter in cramped bunks, their arguments that spilled over into the next shift. It was post-war Britain captured in uniform discipline, colliding with change. While the rest of the country was modernizing, these men still served under a flag of duty that felt increasingly out of time. Streaming it today, you'll be struck by how fresh it feels. The tone sits somewhere between The Crown and Band of Brothers, but with the claustrophobic tension of a ship at sea. If you want a window into the Navy's unspoken emotional wars, Warship sails straight into that storm. A Family at War, 1970 to 1972. At first glance, A Family at War might look like domestic television comfort, a generational saga about an ordinary Liverpool family. But underneath, it's a mirror reflecting the British home front's unseen battles. Each character represents a thread of post-war tension. One son joins the RAF, another enlists in the Navy, while those left behind fight the quieter wars of fear, faith, and fractured hope. Created by John Finch, this Granada television production wasn't flashy. It didn't rely on explosions or uniforms to make its point. Instead, it captured the emotional geography of Britain during and after the war, the empty chairs, the telegrams, the small triumphs of endurance. It dared to ask the harder question, what does victory even mean when every family loses something? The cast, led by Colin Douglas and Sheila Fay, brought a naturalism that still holds up. The writing is sharp, honest, and heartbreakingly grounded. No heroes, no villains, just people learning how to live again after years of uncertainty. Today, A Family at War feels like a forgotten masterpiece, a slow-burn epic that shows the real cost of war isn't measured in casualties, but in conversations left unfinished. Stream it for its truth, stay for its humanity. It's television that remembers. HMS Defiant, 1962. Forget pirates and fantasy battles. HMS Defiant delivers naval drama stripped of spectacle and layered with rebellion. Set during the Napoleonic era but carrying the moral weight of post-war Britain, it's a story about authority, loyalty, and the razor-thin line between justice and obedience. Alec Guinness stars as Captain Crawford, a seasoned officer trying to maintain discipline aboard his ship, while his first lieutenant, played by Dirk Bogarde, seethes with resentment and ambition. Their rivalry isn't cartoonish, it's ideological. Crawford believes in leadership through respect. Bogarde's character believes fear keeps men alive. When mutiny brews, the tension becomes less about gunfire and more about ethics at sea. Director Lewis Gilbert crafts it like a pressure cooker. The ship's wooden corridors feel as tight as a submarine, and every shout echoes with desperation. What's fascinating is how HMS Defiant speaks directly to the post-war generation's unease with authority. You can feel the shadows of the Second World War questions of duty, power, and humanity playing out beneath the powdered wigs. When you stream it, notice how modern it feels. The pacing, the moral ambiguity, even the performances all ahead of their time. It's naval history that doubles as social commentary, wrapped in salt spray and storm clouds. The Guns of Navarone, 1961. You want big screen adventure? This is it. The Guns of Navarone combines the intensity of a war drama with the scope of an epic, and it's one of the best examples of post-war British-American collaboration. Gregory Peck, David Niven, and Anthony Quinn lead a team sent on a nearly impossible mission: destroy two giant coastal guns that threaten Allied ships. But beyond the explosions and daring climbs lies something deeper, a reflection on teamwork and moral cost. Each man carries secrets, doubts, and different kinds of courage. Carl Foreman's script avoids cliches, turning what could have been a straightforward action film into a study of exhaustion and loyalty. The production itself was monumental. Filmed in roads with dangerous stunts and harsh conditions, it set the gold standard for ensemble war films. Yet it's not the spectacle that stays with you, it's the human faces behind it. The weariness in Niven's eyes, the quiet resolve in Peck's voice. These aren't supermen. They're tired, flawed, but still moving forward. Even decades later, when you stream Navarone on legitimate classic film platforms, it still feels urgent. It's about facing impossible odds without knowing if it'll even matter. And maybe that's what all post-war stories are about, doing what's right because someone has to. The Dam Busters, 1955. There's something almost mythic about the Dam Busters. It's one of the most beloved RAF dramas ever, made a perfect mix of tension, ingenuity, and understated British spirit. Based on the true story of the bouncing bomb raid on German dams, it immortalizes Wing Commander Guy Gibson and the men of 617 Squadron. Michael Anderson directs it with documentary-like realism, using real Lancaster bombers and actual RAF bases. The black and white cinematography adds gravity, stripping away glamour to show the cold mechanics of strategy. What's remarkable is how it balances pride with tragedy. Every successful mission comes with the knowledge of the men who didn't make it back. The film also sparked real technological interest. It inspired generations of engineers and aviators, even influencing later epics like Star Wars. George Lucas admitted he borrowed flight sequences directly from it. But the movie's true legacy lies in its tone: quiet determination, humor under pressure, and a refusal to sensationalize sacrifice. Watching the Dam Busters today on free legal archives is like opening a time capsule of courage. It's not about war, it's about invention, teamwork, and perseverance under impossible odds. A film that soars because it remembers what flight really means: rising, no matter how heavy the world feels. So, there you have it, 10 soaring, sea-swept stories of duty, courage, and the uneasy calm that followed the war. These dramas prove that heroism doesn't always roar. Sometimes it hums quietly in the hangar or whispers across the waves. Which one are you watching first? The sky, the sea, or both? Drop your pick in the comments, hit that subscribe button for more hidden classics, and remember, some of the best battles ever filmed didn't need a single shot fired.